Today's discussion on project management methodologies. We will go through different methodologies at a high level. Some of them you may already know, while others might be new to you. We will also discuss some important project management techniques. After that, we will look at examples of tools and technologies. Most importantly, we will discuss how to choose the right tool. I have seen many people struggle with selecting the right tool because there are so many options available. To clarify this, we will explore how to make the best choice. Finally, we will take a look at some of the project management tools available in the market. These tools can be used when you start applying project management techniques in real-world projects. We will examine which tools are most useful and how they can help you manage your projects efficiently. Understanding project management methodologies. I'm sure you'll agree that whenever we talk about a methodology, we are referring to a structured approach that includes various practices, techniques, and procedures. There are also specific rules that we need to follow to implement them correctly. In project management, we come across various methodologies. For example, Six Sigma is one such methodology. Within Six Sigma, we follow the make, define, measure, analyze, improve, control phases. We will discuss Six Sigma as a methodology and understand the different practices we need to follow when implementing Six Sigma projects, such as Green Belt, Black Belt, or Master Black Belt certifications. Applying a methodology requires implementing certain practices and techniques. For example, when estimating a project's timeline and costs, we use specific estimation techniques to arrive at accurate numbers. Similarly, even when conducting a simple meeting, we follow structured procedures to ensure we have the right stakeholders involved and that the meeting is conducted effectively. Following the right procedures helps us achieve the objectives of a meeting or workshop. This is just a small example, but when working on larger projects, we often face bigger challenges. To overcome them, we need to effectively use the right practices, tools, techniques, and procedures to ensure project success. Benefits of project management methodologies. Now, let's talk about the benefits of using project management methodologies. One of the key benefits is work authorization. You may already be using tools like MS Project, Workbench, or Clarity by CA to manage your projects. These tools help create a work authorization system. Once we define the project scope, we break it down into smaller tasks and assign them to different employees or team members. This process ensures that work is formally authorized and managed. By using the right tools, we can easily track progress, generate reports, and understand the overall status of tasks assigned to team members. A proper work authorization system is a crucial aspect of effective project management, helping teams stay organized and ensuring that project goals are met successfully. Another important aspect is project planning. When you work on a project, you must plan it properly. In fact, planning is one of the most crucial phases of a project. To support planning, we use certain tools to capture the plan and track our progress. Having a well-structured plan allows us to monitor and control the project effectively. The tools I mentioned earlier can also be used for project planning, including designing a work breakdown structure, WBS. The work breakdown structure can be created in different ways. It can be based on project phases or, if it's a product, divided according to its components. The WBS helps us identify the exact tasks that need to be performed. Anything not included in the WBS should not be worked on. This is a fundamental project management rule. Schedule planning. Schedule planning is another key activity. Methodologies play a crucial role in ensuring that we approach schedule planning correctly. Without a proper methodology, it becomes difficult to sequence tasks, create a network diagram, calculate the total project duration, and determine the overall schedule. Applying project management methodologies makes all of this possible. Financial planning. Next, we have financial planning. This involves creating an effective financial plan, which includes budgeting and determining how funds will be allocated throughout the project. Financial planning also covers how and when to release funds at different project milestones. These aspects are essential for keeping the project on track financially. Project management methodologies. Now, let's talk about some of the methodologies that help in carrying out the key activities we just discussed. There are many methodologies, as you can see in the slide. We have traditional ones, and we also have modern approaches under Agile. While PMI, Project Management Institute, is not a methodology itself, it provides important guidelines. We also have Prince2, which is widely used. Under Agile, which is an umbrella term for multiple methodologies, we have Scrum, Kanban, Extreme Programming, and Adaptive Project Frameworks. Additionally, we have change management methodologies that help handle different project events effectively. You may have heard of or worked with some of these process-based methodologies, such as Lean, Six Sigma, and Lean Six Sigma. There are also other approaches like Prism, which is slightly different from the rest. In traditional methodologies, we have Waterfall, which is widely used in IT projects. Other techniques include the Program Evaluation and Review Technique, PERT, Critical Path Method, CPM, and Critical Chain Method. Overview of today's session. Since these methodologies are extensive and detailed, some of these methodologies require dedicated training sessions lasting multiple days. For example, PMP, Project Management Professional, training spends a significant amount of time covering these methods in more detail, as they are essential for certification exams. For today's session, we will cover these methodologies at a high level. We will start with traditional methodologies, discuss PMI, move on to Agile methodologies, cover change management approaches, and then explore process-based methodologies like Lean and Six Sigma. Finally, we will conclude with Prism and a few other approaches. So, let's get started. Let's get started with the first methodology, which is the waterfall model. By now, I hope you have a fair idea of what we are trying to achieve in this session. Now, let's talk about the waterfall methodology. Under traditional methods, once you understand how they work, you will be able to position them in a way that helps you see how projects used to be managed. It's not that the waterfall model is never followed anymore, it is still used for certain projects. However, in most cases, we have moved towards an agile way of working. That being said, understanding how the waterfall model was used in the past, or if you have worked with some aspects of it, will help you relate to why we made the shift. We will also discuss the pros and cons of this model as part of this training program. Understanding the waterfall model. The waterfall methodology is a phased approach. It starts with requirement gathering, where we collect all the project requirements upfront. Whatever project you are working on, a significant amount of time was spent gathering and freezing the scope. Once the scope was finalized, there was a sign-off process, meaning no further changes were accepted. Once we were sure about the scope, the next step was designing. This included both low-level and high-level designs, which also required customer approval before moving forward. Implementation and testing. During the implementation phase, stress testing was conducted to identify errors. This ensured that the work met client requirements. A key concept here was traceability, meaning we maintained a clear link between the initial requirements and the final implementation. Testing was another major part of the process. Verification was the final round of testing, done systematically to ensure that all defects and bugs were fixed. This helped improve the quality of the final product. Once testing was complete, the product was moved into production, implemented, and then supported under the maintenance phase. Key takeaways of the waterfall model. In summary, waterfall projects followed a phased structure. Each phase had a clear entry and exit criteria, defined milestones, customer sign-offs at every stage. For example, by the end of the requirement analysis phase, a requirement specification document was signed off by the customer. By the end of the design phase, both low-level and high-level design documents were approved. During the testing phase, several artifacts, such as the test strategy and test approach, needed approval before proceeding. One major disadvantage of the waterfall model was the lack of a feedback loop. Once a phase was completed, you couldn't easily go back and make changes. That's one of the reasons why the industry gradually shifted towards agile methodologies. Let's quickly talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages, pros and cons, of the waterfall model. One of the biggest advantages was its simplicity and ease of use. From an executive management point of view, it had a clear advantage in terms of tracking progress. Since the process was phased, we completed the requirements upfront, designed the system based on those requirements, and built the architecture accordingly. This structured approach made project management easier and gave a sense of control over the entire process. We used to spend a lot of time gathering requirements at the beginning, which helped maintain better control over the project. However, in reality, things were often different. Even though we believed we had collected all the necessary requirements, changes would still arise later. This is why the waterfall model was best suited for short-term projects. Now, let's talk about some of the drawbacks. One major con was that requirements had to be finalized upfront and could not be changed easily later. Once the requirement phase was completed and we moved to the design phase, making changes became very difficult. If we identified defects or needed modifications during the verification stage, we had to go all the way back to the design phase, then modify the build, and so on. This made the entire process very rigid. As a result, solving problems before reaching the maintenance phase was challenging due to the lack of feedback loops. Now, moving on to another technique, PERT, Program Evaluation Review Technique. PERT was first introduced in 1957 by the US Navy for their submarine missile program. This technique considers probabilities, making it different from the waterfall model. When using PERT, we estimate the worst-case scenario, the best-case scenario, and the most likely scenario to determine project duration. As you can see on the screen, if referring to a visual, we arrange activities in a particular sequence using the PERT technique. This allows us to visualize the entire workflow and identify dependencies between different activities. It also helps us manage tasks concurrently, ensuring better efficiency. Visualization plays a key role in project management. By using PERT, we can predict the total project duration. The formula used for estimation is optimistic estimate plus 4 times most likely estimate plus pessimistic estimate divided by 6. This formula helps determine the estimated time required to complete a project or a specific activity. Another major advantage of PERT was its strong focus on achieving milestones. Team members were assigned specific tasks and worked towards completing them within set deadlines. This ensured the project progressed as planned and was completed on time. Now, let's discuss the pros of PERT. As we just mentioned, one major advantage was better activity analysis. By mapping out activities in a structured flow, PERT provided high visualization, making it easier to track progress. Another benefit was improved coordination among team members from different departments. Since everyone had a clear understanding of the workflow, collaboration became much more effective. Additionally, PERT allowed for risk assessment through what-if analysis. For example, if a particular activity was delayed, we could analyze how it would impact the subsequent tasks. This helped identify potential risks early on and take corrective measures in advance. Overall, PERT was a very useful technique for ensuring proper collaboration, better visualization, and effective project management. PERT methodology, pros and cons. One of the downsides of PERT methodology was that it involved a lot of subjective analysis. Since we had to estimate the most likely, pessimistic, and optimistic timelines, the results often changed depending on who was making the estimation. This made the process somewhat inconsistent. Another challenge was the strong focus on time. As I mentioned earlier, achieving milestones within the given timelines was a priority. However, this could sometimes be a disadvantage because focusing too much on time might lead to a compromise in quality. Additionally, PERT was resource-intensive. Since the objective was to complete tasks or activities within the given timeline, additional resources were often required to ensure deadlines were met. This increased the overall resource demand, making it another drawback of the PERT methodology. Critical Path Methodology, CPM. Now, moving on to CPM, which stands for Critical Path Methodology. This approach involves mapping out a sequence of activities, determining the start and end dates, and identifying how long the project will take to complete. One of the key aspects of CPM is the identification of the critical path, the sequence of activities that determine the shortest time in which the project can be completed. For example, as you can see on the screen, a network diagram can be created to visualize the project and its critical path. This helps in understanding which tasks are critical and which have flexibility. As part of this training, we will discuss these concepts in more detail. If you are preparing for the PMP exam, you may encounter questions related to calculating the critical path. We will explore examples of both critical path methodology and critical chain methodology shortly. CPM was highly effective in identifying bottlenecks and critical activities. It also helped in making key decisions such as fast-tracking, starting activities in parallel, and crashing, adding more resources to speed up completion. If I wanted to fast-track a project, I would analyze which tasks could be performed simultaneously. If I needed to crash the project, I would determine where additional resources could be allocated to reduce the project duration. Pros of CPM. Very useful for scheduling and prioritizing activities. Since the critical path identifies the most important tasks, we can prioritize them accordingly. Helped in calculating the total duration required for the project. Encouraged better coordination between different teams, as many functions were involved in critical path calculations. Cons of CPM. Experience required. If you are not familiar with scheduling techniques, it can be difficult to implement CPM efficiently. Lack of flexibility. Once the critical path is defined, changes can be challenging because tasks need to be performed in a fixed sequence. Difficult to manage in complex projects. Imagine working on a NASA project and trying to map out a critical path for such a large-scale endeavor. Managing such a project through CPM can be extremely difficult and time-consuming. Critical Chain Project Management, CCPM. Another method related to CPM is Critical Chain Project Management, CCPM. Once the critical path is established, CCPM takes resource constraints into account. In this method, buffers are added to manage uncertainties. For example, as shown on the screen, there is a project buffer of 7 days, along with feeder buffers to account for resource limitations. This method ensures better project control by considering both task dependencies and resource availability. The resource-adjusted critical path is what we use to create, and that is the foundation of critical chain project management. While this method is not very commonly used today, it is still important to understand for the PMP exam. In critical chain project management, the process is done backward. First, we define the end goal, and then we work backward from there. As you can see on the screen, we start with a clear end goal in mind. Then, we introduce project buffers. These buffers are used to account for resource constraints. For example, if there are not enough resources available for a specific activity. The purpose of these buffers is to ensure that the activity can still be completed smoothly and efficiently despite any resource limitations. Pros of this methodology. Resource efficiency. Since resources are considered as constraints, this method helps in managing them effectively. Focus on the end goal. Because we start with the end goal in mind, the focus remains clear. Bottleneck reduction. Similar to critical path method, CPM, this approach helps identify dependencies and bottlenecks using a network diagram. Once we identify them, we can address them to reduce variations in the project timeline. Cons of this methodology. Not suitable for multi-project environments. Managing multiple projects using this method can be difficult. Possible delays. Since resources are considered a constraint, This can sometimes lead to delays in common tasks. Because of these challenges, critical chain project management is not widely used. Even in the PMP exam, there is a low chance of encountering questions about it. If questions do appear, they will likely be at a very high level. So this concludes our discussion on traditional project management methodologies. We have covered Critical Path Method, CPM, Critical Chain Methodology, PERT, Program Evaluation and Review Technique. I hope this helps clarify these concepts for you. Let's move forward.